You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have, such an awesome guest today, Mr. Bill Watterson, the writer-director of the amazing film Dave Made a Maze. Bill, thanks for being on with us.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
So we're going to kind of break into this film a little bit. I've watched it a few times, and I was like, I got to get this guy. This is probably one of the most original films I've ever seen. I'm not easy to impress being a screenwriter and having been in this business for a while. And when I saw something like that, I got to get him. So the fact that you're willing to come on, thank you so much. I do want to get into a little bit of your origin story. Like where do you come from? How did you get interested in screenwriting? How did that lead towards?
When I was very young, my neighbor, John Richards, and I had access to my father's VHS camera.
Okay.
Where you had the tape in the, you just carried the
old school.
With the tape.
Yeah.
And the idea of editing software was totally foreign to us. So it was just cutting in camera and always getting it wrong, thinking we were recording when we weren't. And we made a whole bunch of, we made threequel. We made Alien Invasion 2, and Alien Invasion 3, all lobbing fireworks at our G.I. Joe figures and stuff like that.
Awesome. And
it seems like that would be the straight path to becoming a filmmaker, but it's not at all. I'm only now remembering that I even did that. I don't know if it was just growing up in Ohio or just sort of my own mentality.
Yeah.
It just didn't occur to me that people made, even though we were making our own movies, it didn't occur to me that people made movies. It was a very long time before film got on my radar, and I actually ended up going into rock and roll. I was playing in bands in college.
Oh, okay.
Moved to Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Just to go on an adventure post-college,
Yeah.
Even then, that's when I actually got into film, but it didn't occur to me that it was something I could do. I dabbled in acting a little bit while I was there, but I was mainly a rocker. But they had the Irish Film Center in Dublin, and I was alone in this country, so I was going there it was one of the hippest bars, too. But I was going there all the time for, like, a Hal Hartley retrospective.
Yeah.
In the 90s. Like, they were already doing retrospectives of Hal Hartley in, like, 1998. I was homesick, so movies like Magnificent Seven, which, obviously is a
classic.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's also a Kurosawa ripoff, but
yeah, of course, it's a samurai film,
right? But the sweeping majesty of the plains of America. Some of those, even Forrest Gump got to me just because it was you saw America coast to coast, and I was homesick. From Cleveland originally, moved back to Cleveland after 4 years in Dublin. Played in rock and roll bands. Started getting into like making music videos and stuff like that. Worked with a friend on a music video and worked on editing it a little bit with another friend. And that's when you start seeing like, this is what you do. And then all the bands blew up at once. Like I was in 3-4 bands and they just imploded one after another. It seemed like 30 was a little old to try to start another band. They break up. Think of Charles Grodin and Midnight Run. These things go down. It just was too daunting. So I moved to LA. I just drove out like days after I made the decision. An apartment in Hollywood, and was still really lost as to what I was going to do, but really missed the performance aspect of music. That took me to improv and auditioning, and
gotcha.
I was booking commercials and getting some gigs here and there.
That's awesome.
Which then takes you into, I was studying at Second City, and they did a really good job of having you understand the beats of scenes and how the dominoes fall into each other so that you get it in your bones, so that when you're improvising, it's not random. You're story constructing, on the fly. And I found that really interesting. And then all the subtext that, like, one of the acting exercises was learning the subtext of lines.
Very good.
And delivering the line, but as if it were the subtext. And then you can retrofit that as the writer really in a really interesting way. And sometimes when I'm stuck, I'll just write out the subtext in my first draft.
That's an interesting approach, because I think, usually you try and fit the subtext in like 4, 5, 6 drafts later. Right. So I think writing it down at first, that's a very interesting experiment. I'm actually going to try that
Sometimes if I'm stuck, I mainly use it if I'm stuck. I'm like, they're in this room. What are they saying to each other? You know? And I'm like, well, he needs this, she needs this, but she says this, but she means that. And I just write out the subtext.
I love
and
it.
then, and then build it back to a conversation.
That's cool.
It can be really helpful. And then also, if I'm writing to direct, obviously it's good for me to know what the subtext is so that I can talk to the actor about it if it's not popping on camera.
I wish every director said that. So where was the birth of Dave Made?
Well, that's Steven Sears, the co-writer. He was the primary writer of that script.
Right.
He and I were friends at Second City, and I was producing and directing a live vaudeville comedy variety show.
Okay.
Very, very Muppet show. And in directing that, I started seeing the macro and the micro at the same time. I had done some web series with our producer, John Charles Meyer. We acted in a web series that I directed. Really, I was acting in it, and my friend who had a really nice camera pretty much directed it.
Okay.
The DP basically directed it, as I realized more and more. But then in the editing of those web series, as I was learning editing, I was like, oh, I don't need those 4 lines of dialogue. If he's looking at her like that, I don't need those 4 lines of dialogue. And that really helps. It's how you know you're a director when you're willing to throw a bunch of shit out.
Okay.
But it also really helped as a writer too. Again, my early drafts are always fat, but
well, that's every draft, right?
Yeah. But that some of that stuff came in really handy, where it's like, oh, maybe they don't need to talk their way through all of this.
Yeah.
Like my earliest stuff is so talky, almost Tarantino-y. It's like, never shut up.
Everybody says their feelings, and you have to kind of figure that out, cut it out, and make sure you leave room for the actors to be able to find that voice. So did he come to you with a concept? Did he already have a draft, and then you guys worked on it together? Okay.
He had, and it's weird how it came about. He had a draft of something else.
Okay.
That if I remember correctly, got affected by a story that I had told about my childhood. Same kid that I used to make the movies with. We built a fort in my bedroom, like the pillows and blankets. It's amazing fort.
Like an epic fort.
Yeah, the whole bedroom. Like you couldn't see the floor at all. It was all you just crawled through the whole thing.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And we were going to his house for dinner, and I left a note for my mom. I'll be at John's. He lives a block away. She comes home, doesn't see the note, goes upstairs, is calling, Bill, where are you? Opens the door, sees the fantasy world that we've built. That's awesome. And immediately assumes that I'm lost somewhere within it. And just starts tearing it apart, like, Bill, where are you? Before she's like, wait a minute. This is crazy. And that concept of you're in your own room and yet somehow someone standing in the doorway can't find you, Yeah. I think, if I recall correctly, that really fascinated Steve. So he took the script that he already had, which had many of the elements that are in Dave Made a Maze, and sort of made it about that. Yeah. And it was also, this is really telling. He had a job that he hated, logging tapes for reality TV.
Oh, okay.
So the James Urbaniak character, all of those off-camera incessant prompts that are just like forcing reality on people who are already being real, all of that was coming out of that frustration, and that's where that whole camera crew idea.
Oh my God, that's such a great aspect of as soon as I saw that, I'm spoilers, guys, but you need to watch this movie.
It's a 4-year-old movie.
Yeah, when the documentary crew goes in there and then he's giving him direction. Okay, can we do another take on that? I was just dying. It's absolutely hysterical.
I love
and it grounds
more childlike wonder.
Yeah.
It's like, shut up.
And my kid, he watched it with me, and he kept going. He goes, Dad, the boom guy is always on point. He's always got the mic. He's always trying to get the angle. Absolutely hilarious. And then the cameraman is just sitting there, just always taping, not helping anybody when they're in danger.
Right.
It's absolute.
Including himself.
Yeah, including himself. Yeah, absolute brilliant writing. And
those two guys are our Second City friends, Scott and
are they?
Yeah, Scott and Frank. Frank was one of our teachers. Scott was in a improv group. We did a 2-man group, but Scott and Steve were, and I believe are, in a group that were just razor sharp.
Did a hell of a job. Well, I gotta tell you,
he had this draft, and my friend John that I made the web series with, who was the lead singer of my high school band, he wanted to produce it, and Steve was like, Bill, I think you should direct it, because we've been doing the vaudeville show and all this stuff. So then we just started we were working laptop to laptop, shaping the script to where we wanted it to be while we were fundraising, which took forever.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you, because you shot this in a studio, right?
Yeah, we shot it in a single soundstage in Glendale, the whole thing.
Yeah. So was it all crowdfunding, or was it more?
No, we talked about it. The only effective crowdfunding video I could come up with, we couldn't use because it had, a rip reel of all the stuff you'd expect.
Okay.
Condry, Labyrinth. It was
Everything.
set to Dance Magic Dance, and but we can't. We even used the thing because we were talking about how we're doing practical effects. And,
Yep.
And a lot of our production team were from Robot Chicken, so we had clips of Robot Chicken and stuff like that. But you can't use that in a crowdsourcing video. You have to use stuff you own. And the whole point was, the selling point of the movie is the tactile nature of all the practical effects.
Yeah.
But we can't make them for free just to shoot them to show you we can make them. Or I can't. I know that's what a lot of makers do with their own materials, but I'm a director. I'm not a builder.
Right.
But we made a video like that anyway, just to use as a private link on our website, and that got us some investors. But it was all independently financed, equity investors, but not crowdsourced.
The theme of the film itself is beautiful. It's consistent, which I love. It's not overly hammered into the audience, So theme is important. You'll see a lot of films that have a weak theme. This doesn't. This is about trying to finish something that you've started, especially if you've had something not actually get done. If you failed several times, or if you put things off because you're worried that they won't be successful. And to me, it just felt like this is an allegory for screenwriting. This is an allegory for filmmaking. And I'm just curious, how deliberate was that done in the process?
100%.
Of this? Yeah.
100%. If anything, I would say that would be my strength as a director, and certainly the strength I brought to the screenplay was theme. I mean, I had read Sidney Lumet's Making Movies, and he, as a director, he defines all of his definitions through theme. Like if someone's asking you a question, he thinks, all right, what's the theme of my movie? And I'll know the answer to the question. Even if it's wardrobe saying, these jeans are these jeans. It's like, hang on.
Yeah.
What is my theme? And that literally happened with wardrobe.
Really?
I went to a what is my theme thought, and it answered the question for me.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that was very deliberate. It was very much a metaphor for the creative process in general. And a lot of people brought things to it. What kept happening in pre-production was we'd get the script to somebody we wanted to work with, and they'd show up and go, so you guys wrote a movie about me. And that happened like a dozen times, because anybody who's trying to make something,
that's a good theme,
knows how hard it is to make something, no matter what it is. Like obviously all the tactile artists who came and worked in our art department, they're all creators, they're all makers. They all generate something out of nothing. Yeah. And they know how hard it is. And the more ambitious it is, the harder it is. Nick Thune, the lead. Yep. He was like, my friend and I have this documentary we've been working on since we were in high school, and we're never going to finish it. And we really want to finish it, and we're never going to finish it. Yeah. And it was like, welcome, son.
My people. Yeah, no, I get it, because, I talk about that, like creating a theme and being able to hit kind of those human truths is really how you can make a script, or in instance, a film, really hit that wide audience. And I think you've done it with this. It does this film speaks to anybody who's ever tried to do anything.
I think so. I mean, we talked about like, obviously the people who are artists, many artists have responded very directly to it, but it's also like, I really want to clean the garage. I got 2 kids, or whatever it is. It's like, it doesn't have to be. And I know when I was first talking to Mira, when I met her first over Skype, like a week before production, we still hadn't had half our cast.
Oh, wow.
We didn't have Rick Overton until the day before he shot. We shot on a Monday, and on Friday I got Adam Bush. On Saturday I got Stephanie Allen.
Was this because you were having a difficulty finding people, actors or talent that could really absorb who the character was?
We were just having trouble getting a meaningful yes.
Okay.
From anybody. We were having trouble getting past lawyers, agents, and managers.
I think it's well casted. I mean,
thanks.
Yeah,
we didn't have any. We didn't. Everything was offer only. We didn't have a single casting session, and we didn't have.
Wow,
we didn't have a single table read. We didn't have a day of rehearsal. I met Nick. No, I met Nick like 2 weeks before because he came to the build space to be like, "Who are these guys?"
Yeah, and his career is doing well.
Yeah. I mean, everything was offer only. It was either someone we knew personally that we knew we could trust, or we knew was at a certain level that would sort of maybe help with the profile of the film.
Yeah, I mean, because
everybody, like Steve knew John Morrison.
Okay.
Scott is a friend of Steve's. Scott and Frank, the boom op and camera, those are friends.
Yeah.
They're friends with Rick Overton. Our producer knew Kristen Vangsness. I had worked with Adam Bush and Scott Krinsky before.
This is why you network.
It was like, I mean, there were some people that came that I targeted. Like I wanted Nick, I wanted James, and then my casting director Lorden brought Stephanie and Mira to my attention. And as soon as I saw them, I was like, of course.
Yeah, great chemistry. I mean, you could see it on screen, which is, man, that's high risk, especially if you don't have like any kind of an audition going.
I met James he was on set in his wardrobe when I met him. I've never met him before. I've never spoken to him before.
Wow.
I mean, he's James Urbaniak. He's American Gold. Like, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
The only thing to worry about was the fact that I was such a huge fan that I completely freaked out when he walked on set that first day, and I was like, I'm completely pretending to be a director, and I have to pretend I'm not freaked out that James Urbaniak is here.
Yeah, well, he probably got a kick out of that part, though. It's a cool part.
Oh, he crushed it. He had nothing. He had ideas for days. Even, I've told this story before, but a friend of mine got me the little viewfinder.
Yeah.
Lens selections, because that's still the technical aspect of filmmaking. The DP side is still a huge blind spot for me. I mean, which is why I hire great DPs. I hire for weaknesses, but I also still want to be able to contribute and speak their language. So and the first he was in his wardrobe test the first day of filming, and I had the thing around my neck or in my pocket. I had it in my pocket, and he's like, what would be great is if I had one of those viewfinders. And I was like, oh man.
I love that.
And it's perfect because there's this great footage of him just doing.
He's always looking for a scene.
But that was James. He wanted it. He wanted that interaction.
That's pretty great. And then you guys even roll that into the scenes where they're the paper bags. He had the little viewfinder, like
Make sure we got the
little cute detail. Yeah, that's great stuff. What about the writing process where you were creating this script or going through multiple drafts? Did you run into difficulty? Did you ever hit that wall where you're like, I don't know where we're going to go?
A lot of times. I mean, Steve and I had a lot of fun, so we were both improvisers.
Okay.
So a lot of times when we got stuck, we would just improvise a scene.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And a lot of that stuff didn't end up in the script because it got us to where we needed to go.
Yeah.
And some of it did. Like, I never expected when we first did the whole like rhyming riff back and forth.
Oh yeah, that's a great part.
I can't remember it offhand, but we improvised that. We're cracking ourselves up in my apartment, and we're like, well, that'll never make it on screen, but let's put it in. And then it did. They crushed it, and it was super fun.
Yeah.
So that helped. That was the way we got out of it. Sometimes I had to, we weren't always in agreement. Sometimes there were really good jokes that I was like, it's a joke. It's not organic to the moment. It's a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's
is it adding to the story or not? Yeah.
And of course, and he wanted to be funny, and it was a great joke because he's a hilarious guy. But so sometimes at a certain point as the director, I had to sort of be like, I have to own this now.
Yeah.
But the one part where I remember I actually drove out to like 40 minutes away to some college campus to sit in a library because I was like, I cannot figure this part of the movie out. It's driving me crazy. And it was it's my favorite part of the movie. It's not everybody's favorite part of the movie, but it's mine. It's when the couple are caught in the loop of their relationship.
Oh, I love that.
No, I really love it.
That's a solid scene.
That's my favorite. That's the most in control I was on set in terms of knowing exactly what I wanted each setup to be, how to play the practical gags and the magic of the costumes appearing and disappearing. And even stuff like frame, I'm like, okay, they're not getting along, so they're not sharing the frame at the top. But as they start to communicate or get dirty over the shoulders, so that they're actually connecting in within the frame, they're literally connected, and then we're in close up by the end because they've fully realized they see each other in a way they haven't.
It was great, and you did that with the dialogue as well.
Yeah, and that wasn't the dialogue. Like Steve had this interest in the costume thing. I think he had the walls changing. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the walls it became more cardboard as the scene progressed. Yeah,
but it didn't loop in that way. And I was trying to figure that scene. I was like, I knew there was magic here, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking of those old Hal Hartley gags where he would. It's a gag. I call it a gag. It's so much more than that. But the characters would swap dialogue.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Like they would I would literally say what you had just said, except it had a totally different meaning now.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, wait a minute, I'm in this weird loop and I'm hearing the same words, but they have totally different meaning. And I was like, that's what this needs to be.
It was perfect. I mean, it was avant-garde in its approach, and done wrong would have stuck out like a sore thumb in the tone that you're going for this film. But it was a perfect way to bring the two characters together and to resolve their conflict that they're having. It was awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it was like that was the emotional climax before the physical climax moments later.
Yeah.
But that's where the themes thinking about the theme came in handy so much, because it's like, I mean, I can hyper-analyze this scene, but it's like Steve had these costumes, but he wasn't even sure why or what they were. So then I was like, all right, what is happening is these are the projections. These are the things we worry about in ourselves or we project on others.
Yeah, it's the subtext. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you're a bum. So that's when I started figuring out, what are these costumes? They can't be random. They have to matter. So you're a bum, you're an artist, you're a clown, like
you're
all these
judge.
insulting things. Yeah. The woman is judgmental. She's too beautiful and unattainable.
Yep.
They're in tuxedo and wedding gown because if you're a couple, why aren't you married? Like all those aggravating projections that we either do to ourselves or society does to us.
It's a great scene that could be broken down and really taught. Like, this is how you can do subtext. This is how you can do visual subtext.
This podcast is brought to you by thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com, where you can find instructional books, videos, courses, and screenplays of Hollywood's biggest hits to download. As an added bonus, visit www.thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com to download the Guide for Every Screenwriter for free. Yes, free. Available exclusively at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com. Now, back to our show.
It's great filmmaking. Very well done.
Oh, thank you. And then the walls, of course, becoming more cardboard is like the facade falling apart. They're ripping the costumes off each other to get back to their true selves. The facade of, the maze's attempt to fool them is failing, and that's why the maze is flailing. And the maze knows if they're in love, the maze doesn't have a chance.
Yep.
So it's doing everything it can to get between them, and they're just getting closer and closer together.
Very good.
With close-ups, basically.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
So that was the scene I really took ownership of, and that was when I was really stuck on for a long time, because I knew Steve had magical clay on the wheel, but it wasn't all adding up.
Yeah.
In the way that I thought it needed to or could. It felt like an opportunity to do something special. And I think that's on a step back way. I think moments like that are why being a director and a screenwriter can be very powerful. Yeah. Because like I noticed someone would be building something because it was in the script. And I'd be like, oh, I mean, it was just this thing in the script. If you have to sit there and actually build it, and then you're like, oh God.
Yeah.
So everything I put in my script better matter.
Yep.
Everything is an opportunity either for narrative or world building or something, or just for a department head to read your script and go, I want to make that thing. So that made me a lot more conscious about not only just everything matters. Everything you put on there matters.
If you put in a giant cardboard keyboard, that's got to get made.
Right, exactly. So don't be flippant,
Yeah.
And then as a director, of course, if I'm pointing the camera at something, it's because I'm telling you this is important.
Yeah.
So it's when you combine the director's mind with the writer's mind to try to write a script that is like I mean, it's like Jenga. It's like everything is there for a reason, and it'll fall apart if it doesn't have this thing, because it pays off, or it's thematically relevant, or it's character relevant, or it's narratively or thematically driven.
Yeah.
It just all has to matter. Otherwise, you're wasting someone's time.
No, I absolutely agree. And when I'm working with students, I'm always telling them every line counts. Every line. Doesn't matter if it's dialogue. Doesn't matter if it's descriptive action. Every line counts. You can't have throwaway anything.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you.
A lot of really highly praised TV series, in particular, they spend a lot of time treading water, and it's for me, it's incredibly aggravating, because it's exactly what I spend all of my energy, my work energy, avoiding. Like, if I feel like I'm treading water at all, it's like, all right, well then this has to be set somewhere interesting, or they have to be doing something while this is happening. It has to be advancing. I have to either be learning something about the character, advancing the plot, building the world, or hammering you with the theme visually, or something. I never want to tread water. And then I watch these scenes where I'm like, we're 5 minutes in, and I haven't. None of those things have happened.
It's interesting you say that, because I find with the higher concept shows with the bigger budgets, they tread more water.
Yes.
But if you have a lower budget show that's more character centric, like shows in the UK, they don't. They put in they stuff their scripts. Oh my God. They stuff their scripts with so much content. I'm watching a show. I was watching the British version of Utopia. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I didn't know that. No.
So Amazon made Utopia. They made the Amazon version, but there's a British version of Utopia. It's 2 seasons. And I watched them. I got my wife hooked. We're into it. But watching one episode of like 50 minutes, they cram so much into it. I was like, what episode are we on? We're on episode 1. Are you kidding me? It's so good. So, I'd say give it a watch.
It's so tight. I was watching Dairy Girls, the Irish.
I love it. I love that.
The Irish comedy. It's like,
solid.
I can't sneeze or I'm going to miss 4 jokes. Like, they are moving almost like Rick and Morty pace of like, don't bore us, get to the chorus. We got stuff to do. Let's keep going. And I'm amazed by it. I totally agree that even I'm watching some Norwegian shows now. I think a lot of the European shows just are like The Foreigners. I love on HBO Max. I just think a lot of the European shows, they're just better at television than we are.
I think it's because they don't have the budget, so they can't waste on spectacle. They have to get into character. Right. They have to get into structure. Like those Norwegian thrillers are so good. Yeah.
If you get a chance, Be Foreigners on HBO Max is a lot of fun. It's a big metaphor for immigration.
All right, I'm gonna look into it.
Time travel. But it's also a mystery. It's also a cop mystery. It's cool.
Are there dinosaurs? I mean, how far are we going with
Not
this?
Yet. There are Vikings, and there are Sumi tribes, and I think there are cavemen. But it's interesting because like the camera will pan through Oslo, through a homeless community. Yeah. And it's all a bunch of Vikings who like never could assimilate because they popped up in this time and they just couldn't assimilate. It's just wonderful metaphor.
That sounds interesting.
And culture.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Before we kind of hit on a few other things, do you have any advice for upcoming writer-directors out there?
Yeah, don't be lazy.
All right.
Don't be lazy.
You heard it.
The number of people who've sent me a script that they're super jazzed about, where I'm like, this is a first draft. And they don't realize it's a first draft. The number of production companies who have brought me in to meet on a script that's not good, that they're all super excited about.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't be lazy.
Yeah.
You're better than that.
Put the work in.
Put the work in. Like, if I read your script and immediately have 15 fixes, it's because you didn't do the work.
Oh, that's rough.
It's because you didn't do the work. And I'm not talking about spelling errors. That happens. That happens in my scripts. That I'm talking about, like, all the stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting to the point, being concise, having everything matter, knowing what you're trying to say. And these are things I'm constantly learning. I think one of my biggest problems is not having too many characters be in a version of my voice, as opposed to really finding, like, when I find a voice for a character, the work takes care of itself.
That takes several drafts, though. I mean, I find it takes 4 or 5 drafts before you start really getting a voice of a character.
Or finding, like, ooh, you know who this is? Like, I used James Urbaniak. as a character that I was writing in a script, because I don't know James well enough to speak for him, but
your interpretation, yeah,
very good. And it's just like I always knew what to say. I knew what to have the guy say. I knew how he would react.
That's great.
I was also infusing some Harry in there. It's like the guy is sort of meta. He tends to comment on what's happening, but that character in particular is because he finds genuine human connection difficult, so he more observes it. It's like it is wonderful that the two of you are getting along. So it's like, dude, shut up.
That's great.
So I know people do that. They'll cast their movie in their head so that they can, find that voice and find that rhythm. But everything matters. Everything you put in your script matters. So if the scene isn't crushing it and you know it, fix it.
Yeah, I love that. I always recommend at least 12 drafts before you send it out to anybody. Yeah, I'm a little hardcore.
That's pretty good. I outline so thoroughly. I mean, my outlines can be 20-some pages where I like just do all.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Beats.
Yeah.
I was hugely influenced by that video from the South Park guys. Always establishing causality. The time I spend on my outline is just getting the dominoes to fall, so that it's just perfectly natural and makes sense. And another thing, here's two tricks.
Sure.
If you're talking about specific advice,
I want to hear it.
The last movie I wrote the third act first.
Okay.
Which is weird. I mean, I knew what was
started with the ending.
On.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with the ending, and then all of the specifics, like it was almost like I'm trying to think of some bird. Like I feel like there's a movie where someone is telling a story and then they remember something. They're like, "Oh no, wait, she has a knife," and the actress is like, "It's like that." We're like, I had all of these details in the third act. I'm like, "Oh gosh, well if this is this guy, then I need to know that."
Yeah.
Here. Or if this shows up and becomes the thing that saves her life, then it needs to be either thematically, metaphorically, or literally placed here. So then I was able to go back and place all the things that paid off in the third act, and as opposed to like just inventing them and being like, I don't know, maybe it's this, maybe it's like, no, I knew what it needed to be, and then so I found the logical place for it to show up earlier in the movie, so that everything in the third act is paid off, as opposed to being introduced or invented.
That's a great trick, especially if you're doing something like a thriller where you have to kind of do the evolution of the mystery. So you could start with the end and then work your way. Yeah, that's a fantastic tip.
It was really, and I was really stuck on that feature. So that's what I did. And then the other thing that never occurred to me, and a friend of mine, Matt Ward, is a great writer. He gave me it as advice, and I did it like 5 times on this last script. If you're stuck, if you enjoy doing this, if you're stuck on a scene, write it, like I just go to Microsoft Word and write it as a short story.
Interesting.
Because sometimes the formality of and this is definitely true because I was an actor, but sometimes the formality of Final Draft or whatever you're using, it can be really dry, but it also can be really intimidating. Like when I see character and dialogue, I'm thinking as an actor, I've got to do it. And I'm like, but that's not the line. This thing is a piece of this can't be right. But if you're in Microsoft Word and you're just like brainstorming a short story, I don't know, for some reason a picture comes off.
It sounds like a good way to like overcome writers. I actually did a blog on writer's block and about how writer's block can be like a form of a mini panic attack. And so you're in frontal cortex creating. You have this panic attack, your amygdala kicks in, which then shuts off the frontal cortex. So if you can get into Microsoft Word, you take a moment, you breathe, and then you have this new kind of atmosphere you can play around in. I can see why that would work for you. Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea.
And also, you can also, in a short story form, in a prose format, you can really dive into the stuff you can't do in a screenplay, which are the inner thoughts of your character.
Inner thoughts, yeah. Motivation.
And then you're like, oh, that's what that character's thinking. Okay, great. And now that I'm in touch with that, now I can just think creatively and pleasantly about how do I show that?
Take your time and
in the screenplay, as opposed to wrestling with that in this really formal structure. That sometimes you're writing in Final Draft and you're just like, I must be a writer because this is so terrible. A first draft is easier to do in Word. It's not forgiving. Thank you.
It's just
it looks so final, even if you know you're experimenting. It looks final. So in Word, for every screenplay I have like 20 to 35 Word documents. That's where I'll dump character ideas. Maybe it's this, and I can actually, and because I prefer writing with a partner, but I don't often write with a partner.
I love co-writing. It's awesome.
I have 3 features that I'm going out with now. All three different collaborators. I love collaborating, but people aren't always available, and sometimes you just got to get your own work done. So my Microsoft Word documents play out like conversations. What if it's this? No, that's lame. Wait, here's a bad idea. What if he's at this? No, he shouldn't be that because of this. But they play out like the conversation I would have with a collaborator,
right?
If we were able to be in the same room, and it always gets me to where I need to go, and then I go over to final draft, and I'm like, okay, now I have the puzzle pieces.
Yes.
You know?
Well, every time you collaborate, you get better, right? Because you collaborate with somebody that they have strengths where you have weaknesses, and then you just teach each other, and it's a lot of fun. If you're collaborating with somebody and it's not fun, you're not doing it right. So,
you get the wrong teammate.
Yeah, I've seen them because I've seen well, don't tell my partner I did this, and you're scared of your screenwriting partner. Wow. You need to find a new one. So no, that's some gold though. Thank you. That's really great advice. So what do you have going on? I know you've done some cool stuff. You've been in video games.
Yeah.
You're talking to a dude with his own action figure. So props to that.
Jim Payton, Lost Planet 3. That was a treat. Let's see. I've directed 3 music videos since Dave Made a Maze. 2 of them are out already and feature puppets. One is a Bollywood, all marionette Bollywood dance music video.
Wow.
Featuring the marionettes for the Bob Baker Theater. And then one is a very Henson, Dave Made a Maze-esque.
Okay.
Travel log basically we did for Greg Feldon. Super fun. And then I've got one coming out in January that's going to be a lot slicker, a lot different for Braxton Molinaro, who's got an album coming out. I've done 2 pilot teasers, 3-minute proof of concepts.
Cool.
One of them I can't talk about, but that show has been sold. I'm not
oh, hey, congratulations.
I'm not attached to it. So congrats go to them, but I'm proud of it. Very proud of it. And the other is for my own show. And I got to work with the Jim Henson Creature Shop.
Nice.
Which obviously for someone who works with practical effects and puppetry was a dream come true. Everything and more that I ever could have imagined. Oh,
I could only be like a kid in a candy land.
I had to keep reminding myself I was the director because they would be showing me things that they're like, so this is what we built. And I just wanted to go, oh my God, it's amazing. But I was like, wait. In the scene, the character does this thing. So it has to have a flexible knee socket. I had to remember I was the director and not just geek out. And we're going out with that property as a TV property. We're going out with that first quarter next year.
That's so awesome.
So wish me luck on that. Very happy.
Oh,
very happy
break your leg, man.
And then, I've got one feature I'm turning into a comic book just because we can't really be on set the way we'd like. And getting movies made is impossible. So I'm turning one into a comic book. It'll be that, first of all, it's satisfying to just see it come to life. And secondly, it's the pre-existing IP that, allays a lot of fears.
Could it be like a limited series type of graphic novel, or is it just going to be like a one-shot type of deal?
It was too thick it was too much for a graphic novel. And I did trim it down a lot. I didn't just hand a comic book artist a feature script. I eliminated a couple characters, combined some things. But I think I've got it down to 3 to 4 issues. So we're doing an issue 1 that ends on basically ends on the Act 1 cliffhanger.
Okay.
And it's really fun. I'm describing it as a midnight run, as a vampire movie. It's super fun.
Oh, that's interesting.
Super fun. It's got a lot of humor and stuff, but it's also got the dark heart that I love. That I think is in Midnight Run, but also is in a lot of John Carpenter
like a dark
stuff.
Comedy.
Yeah, I mean it's basically a vampire movie that's a metaphor for the death of manufacturing jobs in the U.S.
Oh,
so it's
interesting.
The backdrop is very sad. The backdrop is just the frame is going to be full of vacant buildings and empty factories and rust and everything. But then within that world, we find this oil and water buddy comedy with the guys that are going up against the vampires. So it's really fun. And it's working great as a comic book. It looks gorgeous.
Awesome.
So that'll be another fun, just something to have done, but also a piece to play, another way to sort of, it's like, well, if they won't read a script, they'll look at a lookbook. Well, if they won't look at a lookbook, they'll read a comic book. It's like, you got to get them to engage somehow.
Entice them in. Absolutely.
And then I finished a feature based on a short story that I optioned.
Good.
Just finished the first draft of that. It's a wildly ambitious Amblin-style magical fairy tale.
Oh, wow.
Realist fairy tale.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I look forward to whatever you have coming out next. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.